What's up, Attack MMA? I'm your host, Zach Weicker, and today we got a very special guest. He's a professional fighter with a 7-1 record, and he's fighting for the UFC at UFC Fight Night November 18th. Please welcome Nick Aguirre. Nick, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. And before we talk about the fight, I kind of like to get people a little introduction about your background and how you got started to MMA. So, how and when did you originally get into the sport?
I started training when I was 11 years old. Started wrestling when I was 10. I was always a big fan of fighting, just from my dad. My dad was a big MMA fan from like the start. So I always said I wanted to be a fighter. And then my mom was working in a hospital, and she met somebody who had an MMA gym, and we started up going there. And then it just turned out my wrestling club was also owned by a guy who did like MMA. So once we joined that club, we started doing MMA like right after that.
Nice, man. And what would you say are some like your early memories on the amateur and the professional scene?
Early memories. Well, my first memories of like MMA in general was my older brother fought. So like I remember going to like super small amateur shows that were like, I mean, it was wild back then. People who had no experience were fighting. Like there was no commission, no anything. So there I saw a lot of wild things, but that was like my first intro of like really seeing MMA.
Yeah. And I know a lot of your fights early on were in Indiana, which is not really known for its MMA scene. So how would you describe the culture of the Indiana MMA scene and how would you describe your experience fighting there?
I mean, it's definitely very small. It's like not a lot to it. I mean, it's real small shows, but the people are pretty passionate about it who like go. It's like seems like a lot of these small towns, there's not much going on. So like when they have a fight, everybody comes out. So I got a lot of love every time I fought out in these little small towns, but it was definitely, probably different from a lot of other people's experiences.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I know your brother Victor is also an MMA fighter. So how's it like to train him and see him grow in the sport?
I mean, it's cool. I mean, it's big in my family. Like, my dad fought twice. My older brother had was like 10-4 as a professional, so he had a ton of fights. And now my younger brother's fighting too. He's 5-0. So, it's nice to watch him do it. I'm very protective of him. He's my younger brother, but I'm all in on anything he does. I support. So, yeah, it's awesome
Yeah,
seeing him do well.
that's great to see. That's all in the family. And to start talking about this fight, you'll be fighting Payton Talbot on November 18th. So what are your thoughts and opinions on Payton Talbot's fighting style and his strengths?
I mean, I think he's exciting. People like watching him fight, obviously. He's a long guy. He likes to strike a lot. That's basically the gist of it is he likes to come forward and he throws high volume. So I know what I'm getting myself into. I know it's gonna be a hard fight. He's good, but at this level, everybody's good. So it is what it is.
Yeah, and did you watch his recent performance on the Contender Series? And if so, what'd you think of it?
Yeah, I watched it. It looks similar to a lot of his fights. I watch a lot of MMA. I'm like I watch Fight Pass every weekend. Whatever shows are on, I just watch. So I've actually seen him fight way before I ever got his name. And I knew right away that he was pretty good. So I kept my eye on him. So I know how he fights. I have a good gist of it. I've seen him fight a bunch of times. So, I'm prepared for everything he's got.
Definitely, man. And with that in consideration, stylistically, how are you looking at this fight?
I mean, it's gonna be a barn burner, that's for sure. Like I know it's gonna be a tough fight. Like, so I'm prepared for that. I know what I have to do. Just like he's good, and there's things that we are aware of that he does very well. There's a lot of stuff that he has to worry about me too, and I don't know how seriously he's taking that. We'll see, but I'm ready to go. So that's all I could control, and that's all I'm worried about.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you think this will be a barn burner. So do you like being in those tense matches and those very exciting matches for the fans?
I mean, I would love for it to be as easy as possible. If I could finish him in 10 seconds, that would be the best outcome for me. But, I know at this level, these guys are all really good. And, it's not likely that you're going to have that. So I prepare for hell, hell for 15 minutes.
Definitely, man. And I saw this fight is back at 135. So is that the weight class we should expect you at in the UFC from now on?
Yeah, I'll always be a 135er. Locally, I could fight at 145 pounds because, guys aren't taking it as serious. I'm probably a big 145er locally, but when you get to UFC level and these guys are all pulling heavyweight and they all are, this is their life. I have to be a 135 pounder. So yeah, I'll always be a 135.
All right, good to know. And the last time we did see you in the octagon was in January. So what caused such a long layoff?
I really don't know. I was trying to fight in May and it just didn't happen for whatever reason. And then I got married, so during that I wasn't gonna fight, but I was really hoping to fight before then, and then for whatever reason it just didn't happen. It didn't work out. I didn't get offered anything, so this was like my first real offer, so took it right away.
Yeah, and for you wanting to get in back in the cage and you not really getting the offers, was that a time of frustration for you? And if so, how are you able to cope with that?
Yeah, it's definitely frustrating. I mean, I need to make some money. You don't make a ton of money, and I lost my first fight, so I need to make money. So it was frustrating, but I just try to stay as positive as I can, control what I can control. And I was trying to stay active. I was doing like jiu-jitsu matches, doing what I can just to stay busy and competing. I think it's like important to always have that like competitive mindset and keep pushing yourself. So I just try to compete as much as I could, but I'm glad to finally have a fight.
Yeah, definitely, man. And the last time we did see you was in that fight against Dan Argueta. So what'd you learn from that fight?
Big thing was just like control what you could control, you know. Don't worry about outside things, don't worry about things that don't matter. Just worry about what you could control and really dictating the pace of the fight. I let him dictate the pace way too much, and I let him back me up and control basically where he wanted the fight to go. So that's the biggest thing I learned was that. And I learned a lot though. I learned a lot from that fight. Learned more from that fight than all my other fights combined. So I think I've gotten a lot better based off that fight, but obviously it wasn't the performance I was hoping for.
Yeah, man. And obviously it wasn't performance that you're hoping for, as that was your first professional loss. So how hard was that for you to get over the loss?
It's definitely a hard pill to swallow. I mean, there is a thing when you're undefeated. I bet he has it too, where you just think it's going to work out no matter what the scenario is. I knew the situation wasn't the best, but when you're undefeated like that, you sort of have a feel that no matter what happens, I'm going to find a way to get it done because I had done that up to that point. So it was definitely a hard pill to swallow, but just try to learn as much as I can from it and make it a valuable lesson. I don't want to just take that loss and learn nothing and go through that again.
Yeah, man, I feel you. And even though it was a loss, it still was your UFC debut. So how's it like to make your debut and make the walk? And how would you summarize that whole experience?
I mean, it all happened so fast. I mean, I got the fight 5 days or 6 days, something like that. So there really wasn't too much time to think about it. I didn't really even I don't know if even really hit me that I was in the UFC until after the fight, like right after. I remember Paul Felder came in, and I was like, "Oh shit, you just fought in the UFC." But yeah, I don't know. I didn't really think about it too much. Everything was going on like so fast, but it was a cool experience for sure.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you only had a little less than a week to prepare. So what are the biggest challenges with that short notice?
Um, I mean, basically, you're just whatever shape you're in, and that's what it's gonna be. I had to lose probably about 20 pounds. So I don't know. There's a lot to it. You have to a lot of doctor's appointments. There's a lot to it, but it is what it is. It's a fight. You have to go out there and control what you can control, and that's a big thing I learned from last time.
Yeah. And would you say you feel more prepared for this fight as you have a full training camp?
Definitely, by the time the fight it'll be 13 weeks. So I had a long camp. I mean, we've done a lot. That's the hardest I've ever worked in my life. You know, I have a great team, so they're pushing me every day. I have tough rounds every day. I'm sparring with guys who are top level. So, I know on that day I'm going to be the best version of myself. And that's all that I can control is what I go in there and like my effort. And I know that this is the best I've ever been.
That's great, man. And training camp, you mentioned it's long and it has been hard. So during a hard training camp, you don't really get that much time off. But when you do have that time to relax, you do have that free time. What are your go-to things to do?
I mean, I mainly just hang out with my wife, as much as I can whenever I have free time. And I don't do anything crazy. I'm pretty chill, like nothing nuts, that's for sure. Just hang out with my wife, hang out with my family. I'm really close with my family, so I try to hang out with them as much as I can too.
That's great, man. And this fight will be back at the Apex. So what are your opinions on the Apex and that small environment?
It's definitely interesting. So it's weird. It's a weird place to fight, but I fought there before, so I got that experience now. But it's definitely different. I didn't love fighting there, but it is what it is. Um, I've experienced it before, so it'll be maybe it'll be nicer this time. We'll see.
Yeah. Hopefully, man. But with your time in the UFC, I know you definitely want to get out there and not just fight in the Apex. So where are some destinations and venues you would like to fight at in the future?
I mean, shoot, anywhere where my family could go. I would love for my family to be able to come watch me fight in the UFC. I mean, this has been my dream since I was 7 years old. I've been talking about it forever, and my family's been very supportive of me. I was broke as hell, like every guy who's going on this journey, and everybody supported me. So I would just love for my family to be able to come watch me. That's the biggest reason I'm not like thrilled about fighting at the Apex is none of my family get to go, but it's a fight, so it's not going to make a difference.
Yeah. And is there any dream fights that you would like to have in your time with the UFC?
Not really. Just want to. All I care about is winning, just winning and getting to the next one. I don't really have like a dream guy I want to fight. Obviously, fighting for a belt is what everybody's dream should be in this sport. It doesn't matter who it's against. That should be the goal. So that's all I care about is winning and you know making those type of things realistic.
Yeah, definitely, man. And something I saw on your Instagram is that you'd have trained with Yair Rodriguez. So how's it like to train with a guy like Yair? And is there anything in particular that Yair has taught you at all?
Training with him was awesome. You get to see that highest level. That's he's one of the best athletes I've ever seen. That's for sure. It was just nice to be around somebody who was like getting ready for a title fight. That's the dream is like those type of scenarios. So to see that firsthand every day it was like really nice and got to like feel him and feel kind of where I'm at compared to the highest level. And yeah, he was super nice guy. He gave me a lot of good advice. Just told me the biggest thing in this sport is just, having confidence in what you're good at and, getting into those positions. So yeah, he was a real nice guy. I really liked training with Yair.
That's great, man. And you mentioned that it was a long layoff before. So when would you like to fight next after this fight?
I mean, I'm not even really thinking about it. Nothing past November 18th matters. There's nothing in my life after that date. That's how I'm looking at it. You know, all that matters is that date, and then we'll worry about that when it's over. But, you know, hopefully not 10 months, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I did notice that you mentioned in those 10 months you did compete in a few jiu-jitsu matches. So how's that whole experience like for you?
I mean, it's fun. It's something to do just to compete. I mean, I don't really get super nervous about stuff like that. I just kind of, once you fought, doing a jiu-jitsu match is nothing too stressful. So it's just nice to go out there, kind of have fun and compete. But yeah, it's always good time. I know a lot of people in the jiu-jitsu world, so I really like jiu-jitsu. It's fun.
That's great, man. And something I noticed that you mentioned a lot in this interview is your family and your wife. So you guys did get married in July. So how special of a moment was that for you?
Yeah, it was awesome. My wife's awesome. She's super supportive. She's supported me through all this. She's my biggest fan, my number one supporter. So, you know, I have a great support system, but my wedding was awesome. I love my wife, so it was great.
Yeah, that's great, man. Is there any like certain memory from the wedding that stands out to you? Anything special from the wedding?
Yeah, the whole night was awesome. Everybody who was there. It was a great time. Not one specific thing, but the whole night was great. It was honestly a great time.
That's awesome, man. And my final question for you is if you can give a piece of motivation to anyone out there, what piece of motivation would you give them?
Just go for it. Just go for it in this life. A lot of people are gonna tell you you can't do things, but you know, that's my big thing is I always bet on myself this whole time. It's hard being broke sometimes. It's hard like going through all this sport. There's a lot to it. It's really hard, but I always bet on myself and I know no matter what happens, I could look at myself in the mirror and live with that I fucking went for it and most people are scared to ever really truly live life.
That's awesome, man. And before you head out, is there anything you want to plug? Anything you want to shout out?
No, I just want to thank you for the time and then, thank all my teammates and coaches at VFS Academy. I have the best coaches and team. I have great teammates and I get pushed every day. So, they have me ready for this and November 18th, I'm gonna make everybody proud and I'm gonna go get the job done.
Thank you, man. Nick, it's a pleasure having you on. I wish you the best of luck in November. Folks, that'll be all for today. Until next time. Peace.
All right.
Thank you, man. That was a blast. I
All right.
wish you the
Thanks.
best of luck, man. Have a good one, okay?
All right. Thank you. You too.
All
Bye.
right. Peace.